Okay, I started off as just a general bookkeeper.
Interesting.
Yes, about 2011 I joined this company, just a part-time bookkeeper. And I soon found out that just doing the accounts wasn't keeping me busy enough. I like to keep really busy and keep my hands busy and things like that. So I said, what else can I do? And I said, well, are you any good with tools? And I grew up with a dad who's very handy. So I said, yes, I can use all sorts of different tools. And I said, what about soldering? And I have two brothers who are also very handy and made sure I could use all those sort of things. So they said, well, can you make lights for us? So all those LED lights that you see up in the aeroplanes when you turn on the lights, we make those here as well.
Awesome.
So I started making lights and the electrical harnesses that put all the lights together.
Wow.
So I did that and I increased it and started using the resin and assembly to put it all together. Then I'd go out in the workshop and help the girls put the mill trays together and all that sort of stuff. And then not long after, I went and did IHS Cert 4 and set up our new occupational health and safety system, all the forms, all the processes and all that sort of stuff. And little companies like us, we repair mill trays for Qantas, and we also used to repair like the toilets and things like that in aeroplanes, because someone's got to do it.
Someone's got to do it.
Someone's got to do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I became, after that, the safety manager and the quality manager. Also took over the title of occupational health and safety manager and training manager. While the work we do, you don't actually require any formal training. It is very specific. So while somebody who might come in might just need to know how to do hand tools, there's a lot of training we do once we've employed you. So it's very hard to get people to do what we do.
Absolutely, I can imagine. And I understand that you are one of the leading companies that's actually doing this in the whole of Australia.
Yes, so we are actually the only company, as far as I know,
that
do what we do
Even
in Australia.
better.
Yes.
Perfect.
So what we do is we make the total interiors, so that's the walls, the window surrounds, ducting and vents and all that sort of stuff for new aeroplanes. We also retrofit aeroplanes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's actually one of the coolest things, because we underestimate when we go travel on airplanes, like how much thought process goes into behind even those little tray tables or the window shades and everything, which we've seen around your workshop now.
Yes.
So I think that's the cool part. So talking about Aeroplastics, what makes you unique, and talk me through a little bit about the thought process that goes into building a part.
Okay, so I'll start from the start. So 1986, Greg Scobie, who used to own this company, used to work out at Townsville Airport, and they were looking for a part for an aeroplane. They couldn't get it anywhere. And he goes, well, why can't I make this part?
There you go.
You know, they've got the old part. If I just take it and reverse engineer it, then I can sell it to the company.
He was problem solving from the get-go.
He's a very clever man, our Rex Scobie. So he started this company, 1986, just himself and his wife, and they started to build just little spare parts. Someone would call up and say, we can't find this part anywhere, it's no longer manufactured, can you make it for us? They go, send us the old part and we'll reverse engineer it. So that's what they started to do. And of course, the catalogue of what they can do grew and grew. So we make something over 6,000 different parts for aeroplanes. We get more in every day because the original manufacturer only make these parts for a certain amount of time and then they stop making them. Whereas aeroplanes can be in the air 20, 30 years. And they need these parts to keep flying. So that's why we keep going.
Next time I'm on a plane, I'm going to try and count as many as I possibly can.
And the thing is, you might see a wall in an aeroplane, but it's going to have multiple bits and pieces to it. You know, you've got the outer wall, you've got the inner wall, you'll have all the wiring behind that you don't see, all the fasteners that attach it to the wall, everything like that. All has to be tested, certified, it has to be the right material. I don't know if you know or not, quite a while ago there was a big industry in counterfeit parts in aviation.
Wow.
Yeah, so a lot of people were getting substandard parts and their airplanes were failing. So everything from getting parts off plane and putting them back on, all very rigorously, you know, everything has to have its very own little piece of paper. And it has to be signed off by someone so they can trace it all the way back to where it's come from.
Makes sense. I think that's where the accountability is required, because at the end of the day, you are failing to properly manufacture things or design things or certify things means that you could potentially play with people's lives. So it's serious work.
Yeah, and it can be as simple as putting the wrong light globe in a part. It might be too big. It might end up catching fire or something, you know, and then there's your airplane stuck on the ground.
You need some good problem solvers and proper thinkers.
Yes,
absolutely.
So everything has to be exact, otherwise you can't do anything in aviation.
Yeah. And what are the skill sets currently? Let's say if you're looking at one of these parts behind us.
Okay, I'm
Talk
going
me
to
through
do
it.
this.
Yes.
Is a very good sample. Now, in a car, this is your sunshade. All right, and it would go up here. Sorry, people. But in an aeroplane, it actually sits down here.
Interesting.
Because, of course, the light reflects up. You're up above the clouds, the light's going to reflect off the clouds. Guys have, of course, their aviation sunglasses. Okay, so this sort of thing, we have our aluminium, so our metalwork, which also gets spray painted here. We have a spray painting booth, which is great. All right. Then we have our polycarb, which is tough plastic, which we thermoform. So we have 3 big ovens outside. So that's what we call suction moulding. Then we have on the inside, we have our gluing and our resin. So that's our assembly. And then we also have our soft trim. So this is actually coated in foam and it has vinyl over the top. So this goes through about 6 different people's hands to get to this.
Wow.
And then we send it off overseas and they put it in the airplanes. And that's how it works.
What's the process prior to the manufacturing context? Are there any software involvement?
We do. We have what we call SolidWorks, which we use to draw up these items. It's an easier one. So what we would do is draw up the shape. I'm sure you would have seen these in the aeroplane. All right. So we draw this up on our SolidWorks program. Then we flatten it out and put it into CAD software. What the guys will do is then make a mould out of this, because it has some parts that need thermoforming. They'll mould that out. Then we have quite a lot of items will either be cut out then on our 2 CNC machines, or we will have jigs that we cut out, like bandsaws and things like that. Then they get deburred, which is, you'll see some of the tools around over on the other table. It's just to take off all the sharp edges. They get cleaned up. Then we use our certification. We put a little stuff on here. I inspect it, stamp it, date it, give it this is called what we call a GRN, which is a good receive number. So we trace the material all the way from getting it in, all through the workshop until it comes in to be inspected. Make sure it goes right. Then we do up the paperwork for it. So this is what goes out with every single bit of material. I'll open it up and show you a bit of it. So it has the burn tests for the material that we use. It'll have an engineering order if it needs an engineering order to go with it.
So is that testing done here?
Burn tests we don't do here, but for instance, for acrylic, we do stress tests, impact tests and things like that. For foam, we do another impact test. So we actually send it off to the US to get burn tested.
Wow,
All right. Now, when we make this as well, depending on what we make it under, we have 3 different certifications that we can use. If we were repairing it, it would be under the Part 145. So we would do a repair, which is on this side of our paperwork. But this one is a manufacturer. So we do our CASA certification number.
That was done today.
That was done today. Yeah. I inspect it. I check all what it is. I check the part numbers, make sure the GRNs match, so we're not sending out the wrong material. I then check that the burn test number is correct, all that sort of stuff. And once I check absolutely everything, then I sign it and it can be released and go. So I have to do that for every single
item
that we send out.
So attention to detail is a very important skill set.
Very important.
Let's talk about skills, because I think that's the important part, especially teachers listening in and even students who might be tuning in. We want to be able to help them understand how their classroom skill sets actually help them connect with industry standard skills. So in your eyes, in your perspective, to work in a context like this, to work with aeroplanes, this kind of attention to detail, what skills do you value? What do you look for?
Okay, one of the biggest ones is communication. Okay, the work here goes from workstation to workstation. So people need to know up to what job people are up to and what needs to be done next. All right, so we've got to be able to talk to one another. And if you can't do that, it's a bit hard.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the emotional intelligence comes in. This was one of the conversations we were having in schools. It's not something that's you can put a price on it almost, but it's foundational to working with any form of work. And you're talking about collaboration on a daily basis, so that's very important.
Yes. And then there's the technical side.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we work a lot off what we call drawings, which is paper that goes around the workshop, and it shows us exactly what we need to do to make each part. So you need to be able to read this paperwork and you need to be able to follow a drawing. And most of the time it's a picture and it shows you what you need to do with a few words. But it means you almost need to be able to think in 3D. So you're looking at it, but you've got to be able to see what it might look like if you're holding it in your hands. So that is something that needs to be learned. It's not something a lot of people can do right off the bat.
Absolutely. And even reading a workshop drawing is a very important skill set.
Yes.
We're seeing things in 3D, but being able to extrapolate information 2D and build something that doesn't exist, that's where the thought process is very key.
That is. So with that comes things like being able to use a guillotine to cut up our huge seats. We buy from the US what we call kydex, which comes in sheets that are about as large as this table. And then we cut it up into the sizes that we need. And then we do what we call thermoforming, which is we get those cut sheets and we put them into an oven, we get them up to the correct temperature, and then we suction mold them onto a mold.
If you remember some subjects in schools, like let's say the science, STEM subjects?
STEM subjects, maths. Maths is a great one.
Design and technologies, I think, is a given.
Yes, of course. We do quite a bit of design in-house using the SolidWorks programs, things like that. Then a lot of it is also your workshop, cutting things on bandsaws, routers, things like that. We do quite a lot of gluing, which is a lot of fun, actually, using the resins, bit of chemistry there, stirring things up.
I think even having the understanding of chemistry and physics into this context with materials, you're working with so many different types of materials, and in a context where material properties are pushed and tested constantly. So I think that's a very cool thing.
Know which things will stick to one another.
Absolutely.
That's a big thing. Also knowing what, like with our resins and glues and that, you've got to know what things, apart from what will stick together, what will go off the best. Because quite a lot of, particularly like, you might have seen like shows like CSI and things like that, where they have the glues that will show up the fingerprints.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, I can't remember what it's called at the moment. But we use glues like that, but we don't want it to show up the fingerprints because that marks our
Absolutely, yeah.
products. So you've got to know when you can use those sort of glues.
Yeah.
Will it set properly? All that sort of stuff. Yeah, so like for instance, in here, there's all sorts of different glues that we use in here that set off at different times. You can't use too much. It makes the thing that you're making weigh more.
Yeah.
And every ounce on an aeroplane matters because they have weight limits. So what we try and do is make the lightest part possible, but still make it as strong as possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's your maths.
A lot of thinking behind it.
A lot of thinking, yes.
Yeah. Now, from an educational context, being an industry professional, what's your advice for the teachers?
They've got to have a good imagination,
Absolutely.
really.
Yeah.
If you want to design a new part, you've got to think outside that box. I mean, we get a lot of people showing us a new part they want us to make. And sure, the part they made is absolutely beautiful, but it's impossible to use. So they've got to not only think about aesthetics, but can you actually use something?
Make it usable. Think from the design and
Yeah.
the user-centered design. That's where that would come into play.
Yeah. And then, sure, we could make this part like this, but then if anything broke on it, you would never be able to repair it. And that's another problem. And that's can be a big problem in aviation.
And one of the things that I want to really, I think hearing what you've talked here is the skill sets, the best advice for the teachers would be to replicate designing one of these parts, maybe something as simple as the sunshade, and build it in whatever the machine capacity they have.
Yes.
Test it. Let's see that process even happen in the classrooms. And most schools will be able to do that kind of thing with the machines they have, with the software they have.
Yeah.
So do you have, lastly, advice for students who is interested in getting into this cool sector?
No matter what you do, maths is a great thing to learn. And design is also another thing. But even myself, I mean, sure, I was strong on the maths. Yeah, bookkeeping, but pick up a tool, do something with a tool. Like I remember in year 10 at school making a light bulb work. So just simple electronic things helped me when I needed to make lights.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
So 40 years later, I learned how to make light bulbs.
Perfect. Well, look, that's valuable advice for, I think, teachers and students, and a lot of people can understand what the complexities behind this context.
Yeah.
What's the best way to get in touch if schools want to actually engage you, even if students and parents might be interested? What's the best way to get in touch?
Okay, so we are called Aeroplastics and Structures. We're in Garbutt in Townsville. You can call us. Telephone number 074775169, or you can go to our website, which is aeroplastics.com.au.